We're hearing this question across the industry, right? Everybody's trying to reckon with like AEO, GEO, what do I do? Like, how do I understand this now LLM driven world? And, I would point back to this simple point that I made earlier, which is that Reddit is the single largest collection of human conversation on the internet. And at the end of the day, human conversation is what keeps AI smart, right? Like you can't have artificial intelligence without first having the human intelligence.
Welcome back to Retail Remix from Retail Touchpoints. Today we're talking about Reddit's powerful role in discovery and commerce, and how marketers are finding ways into the notoriously discerning online community. Anna Haffner, Reddit's Senior Director of Large Customer Sales, joins us to talk about what she learned in her time at Google before she joined Reddit 5 years ago, why Reddit communities are so valuable to retailers, how the platform has worked to protect its culture as its advertising ecosystem has evolved, and what's ahead with the community's new Shopify integration and AI-driven product discovery. Thanks for joining us, Anna.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Tell us more about your background before joining Reddit in 2021. What were you doing at Google?
Yeah, sure. So I joined Reddit in 21 after a 17-year run at Google. I was there during the early days, multiple roles, mostly in the large customer sales organization. I was really there during kind of a massive phase of hypergrowth when Google acquired YouTube and search advertising became kind of an industry norm. I think, what I took away from there are so many things, but I loved working with big brand marketers and understanding their challenges. I loved figuring out how to use DR and performance ad solutions to help big brands grow. And, in 21, some Google friends brought me over to join Reddit, which at the time, it was a small, lesser known platform. It's had a lot of growth and change since then.
Yeah. What excited you about that opportunity at Reddit?
At the time, so 2021 was sort of peak pandemic days, and Reddit seemed to be in kind of a really unique market position then, in that it was like kind of this really big, very scaled platform with an audience the same size as TikTok or Pinterest, but they were newer to the ads game. Right. And they had only really begun to monetize the platform like in the early 2020s. And I guess, coming from an organization like Google, which was by 2021, very, very large, I was sort of inspired by the small size of Reddit's organization. It was like 2,000 people, and kind of the ethos of the platform too. Like there's this magical thing, I don't know if you know, that happens whenever you're asked for advice or you ask someone for advice on a topic that they feel super knowledgeable and uniquely passionate about, right? Like whatever it is that lights you up. In a way, that's kind of the spirit of Reddit and its communities, right? Is like it's a lot of people lending their knowledge and advice to each other. And I felt like that was maybe something I could get behind. And, I was excited by the founder and the leadership team. It still continues to be founder-led, which is unique given it's 20 plus years old. And the leadership team culturally, I think, is still a pretty great people to work with as tech companies go.
Yeah, Reddit to me is one of the most interesting platforms out there. I think all of my friends are actively, if not posting, definitely listening in on those conversations, depending on what they're interested in. Why was it kind of controversial when Reddit started introducing advertising products and services, and what is so unique about the Reddit community?
I don't know necessarily controversial, but I think for users, our communities are built on trust, right? And the thing that's so unique about Reddit is the high degree of trust that the users have in the information they see on the site. It's a place that's uniquely human. And I think like these days, and we work with all kinds of large brands in the advertising space, and all of them are tracking the fact that the consumer decision journey is changing so rapidly, right? We're in the middle of this kind of AI tsunami, and brands are really tasking us with helping them figure out the whole landscape of how is the consumer, specifically the retail consumer, shopping, and seemingly changes every week. People are kind of overloaded with AI generated content, affiliate information. And I think like amid all this information overload and kind of declining trust, more purchase journeys are happening on Reddit than ever before. And I think that's where we've kind of really found an intersection of where we can help retailers. Some people are like surprised when we talk about this, but Reddit is now the third most visited site in the US. It typically, depending on which source you reference, ranks kind of right between YouTube and Amazon. And people come every week to search, to ask open-ended questions, to like obsess before they spend their hard-earned money on a product purchase, right? We talk about the fact that I think it's over 40% of Reddit conversations are actually product related. So while it's funny because Reddit kind of has this like anti-commercial vibe to it, it's a very human thing to be shopping, right? And people are shopping on Reddit. They're doing all kinds of deep dives into product-related information and queries. And so, as a result, when you advertise in these conversations, we see great ROAS compared to, other platforms across the web. And we've done some research with FOSFA to quantify this.
Yes, I see a lot of excitement in addition to, like how many people are visiting Reddit. It ranks highly on Google. Like Google is citing a lot of information also from Reddit. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're seeing some really interesting trends. We're seeing tons, I think it's billions actually, of people appending the word Reddit to their Google search. So this is really interesting behavior, and it's risen year over year. What is that telling us? Like people will put best mascara Reddit or like best headphones Reddit. And I think that's kind of a signal from the user that they're looking for human, trustworthy information. Reddit is like the single largest body of human conversation on the internet. And so, I think in an AI-driven world where these like feed-based social environments are starting to feel like kind of a TV on in the background with commercials you didn't want to play, I think people are going to Reddit to like verify and get a deeper human layer of information in their product purchase journey.
And so how, like, as you're hyper aware of all of these conversations happening about shopping, certainly you've introduced some really sophisticated advertising products and services to help marketers tap into that. How do you kind of maintain that really unique online culture and make sure that, the trustworthiness and humanity still stays central to what's happening there?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And we talk about this with advertisers all the time, right? Because Reddit feels like this very kind of unique combination of people sharing viewpoints in a trusted space, right? But I think what we advise is that advertisers kind of stay true to what makes their brand and Reddit unique. Like Redditors definitely don't hate brands. We did some research that said that over half of Redditors agree that if you see a brand responding directly in a thread to a question coming from one of your customers or your brand fans, that actually increases their trust in the brand. So I think in a way, like Redditors don't hate brands. I think all of us as internet users kind of dislike disruptive advertising that feels contrived and feels like a PR slogan from, a corporate communications department. So we're doing things like introducing ad formats now that complement the user experience rather than disrupt it. For example, we have this cool feature in our ad stack called conversation summary add-ons, which basically lets brands integrate positive Reddit conversations right into the ad copy, right? So you can kind of let your brand fans do the talking for you. Another one we have that's really popular in the retail space, especially in the holiday season, is this thing called a Freeform ad, which is, it's actually a format that's native to our communities. It used to be called a mega post. If you're a longtime Reddit person, you'll know it as a mega post. But basically, our communities create these long form posts that really go deep on a specific topic. And we've now productized them into an ad unit where you can put, like, for example, your entire product catalog or a gift guide. But there are lots of ways on Reddit that brands can tell really rich kind of multimedia stories, and they can do it in a way that feels entirely native to our community and the conversations that happen there. And that's helpful, like genuinely helpful to the users.
Let's talk about who's tapping into those products and services well. Have there been any recent campaigns that you've been really excited about or proud of?
Gosh, there are so many. We've had some awesome breakthroughs. 2025 was a big year for us in the retail space. I would say, Walmart, for example, they had a big brand repositioning last year. I don't know if you maybe followed this, but they were trying to basically move the perception of their brand from being just a value-based retailer to kind of more of a discovery destination where you can really find like this unexpected assortment of brands and products, right? And the tagline for their campaign was "Who Knew?" And this came from conversations on Reddit, because when they mined our communities, the insight was that there's a lot of conversation on Reddit talking about finds at Walmart, right? Like, who knew you could find awesome fashion at Walmart, or who knew you could find great baby products at Walmart? And so all of the ad copy, which included an out-of-home component and television component, I walked by it in Penn Station one day, the out-of-home ads, and all of the out-of-home and copy for the digital campaign featured Redditor conversations, which for us was a really big breakthrough because, I would argue like 4 years ago, a lot of the major big box retailers weren't using our platform to this extent. That particular Walmart campaign won a Webby, which we're really proud of. Other examples in the beauty space, MAC, the brand, is doing some really innovative stuff with us. They are kind of using Reddit communities as a live focus group. I'm a big MAC makeup fan myself, and it is sort of a millennial brand. And they actually asked the community, which of our discontinued beauty products would you want us to revive and bring back? And they got over 1,000 comments on this, which was a really interesting, use of our community. So some good info there, not just for their marketers, but maybe like for their R&D department. The Home Depot, we work really extensively with them. They just named us as their first ever self-service RMN partner at their In-Fronts event, which basically means that like brands and suppliers to Home Depot can now launch Reddit campaigns directly within their self-service platform. And then I guess I would point to some of the work we've done with Dove. I don't know if you've seen that work, but they're really innovative, and they've committed to basically using unfiltered Reddit reviews, including the negative ones. And I think like their angle on that, kind of using radical transparency and being real, was such a smart take on how to unlock and unleash Reddit for your brand.
Yeah, I really, really love that Walmart one as well. As far as like what it takes to pull some of these campaigns together, as far as resources go and planning goes, like, could you walk us through how marketing teams are approaching this type of work?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure your depth of familiarity with Reddit ad products. Are you like a power user? You understand the suite, or a little bit more basic in terms of knowledge?
More basic, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think in a nutshell, like if you want to understand how to harness Reddit at a high level, you can think of almost everything you can do on other major social platforms, you could do on Reddit as well, right? So promoted posts, takeovers, all that kind of good ad format coverage. I guess I would say there are a couple of Reddit unique formats, which are our AMAs, which are Ask Me Anythings. And those, I think, are a really only on Reddit way to have a conversation. Now, we've done these with various public figures. Jason Tatum, a Boston Celtic, did one a long time ago. I'm a huge fan of the Celtics, where, fans can come and ask questions. We've also seen, beauty companies, pharmaceutical companies put experts, doctors, and other types of public figures up as a way to allow their audiences to really have one-to-one connection with fans. We've had Adidas do it with various athletes who represent the brand and so on. So those are really fun. And then we also have the format I mentioned before, which is free form ads, which is a longer, more native format. And then, as I mentioned before, too, increasingly, we're starting to take the comments from conversations across Reddit and include them in the ad format, which is also a really unique kind of only on Reddit thing.
For sure. At Shop Talk this spring, Reddit introduced a new native Shopify integration in alpha. And from what I understand, you're now deciding to implement it fully. What kinds of results can you share about the integration?
Yeah. For those who don't know, it basically just unlocks our dynamic product ads with a few clicks for advertisers. And it kind of takes away the friction of manual setups, and it allows advertisers who are newer to our platform to sync, target, and optimize their store within minutes. And we're seeing great results with DPA. I think what's unique about every platform has a feed-based shopping ad, right? That Reddit is not new to this area and not unique. But I would say what's interesting about DPA on Reddit is it kind of puts you deep in these really unique conversations on the platform, right? Because Reddit is such a conversational platform. In terms of results, we see DPA driving really high ROAS across the board in that format. And Shopify just facilitates that now.
Nice. And you also started testing an AI search tool that takes community recommendations and matches them with products. Can you give us an update on how that test has been going?
Yeah, it's super early days. We're working with a small handful of trusted testers. I think at the end of the day, when you add the voice of the community into your ads, they work better, right? Because it's human. It's real human conversation. It's not marketing slogans. And I think we're going to continue to look at ad format innovations that kind of harness the power and wisdom of our communities, because that's what we do well. But apart from that anecdotal evidence that they're performing well, I don't have any specific proof points. It's just too early.
And how are, especially when you think about that crucial human element of conversations on Reddit, how are retail brands thinking about balancing that with AI discoverability in LLMs?
We're hearing this question across the industry, right? Everybody's trying to reckon with AEO, GEO, what do I do? How do I understand this now LLM driven world? And I would point back to this simple point that I made earlier, which is that Reddit is the single largest collection of human conversation on the internet. And at the end of the day, human conversation is what keeps AI smart, right? You can't have artificial intelligence without first having the human intelligence. And so I think there's so much that brands can learn by simply using some of our analytics tools. One is called Reddit Pro, but there's a whole suite of tools that you can use to really mine and understand what Reddit communities think and say about your product and brand. And I think, as you try to conquer this whole world of LLMs and generative AI and discoverability, this is one really critical piece to look at and to make sure that your brand has a presence on this platform and that your brand understands it and can harness the power of it.
Nice. I'm just curious, after listening to you talk, it seems like you are especially skilled when it comes to that sort of transparency and trustworthiness and not contrived marketing campaigns. I'm just curious if there's anything out there not Reddit related, any marketing plays or campaigns you've seen that stood out to you as being particularly fun or effective.
Let's see. It's interesting. I hate to say it, this is so institutionalized, but Reddit actually has some great consumer marketing. This is an old one, but we did a really interesting Super Bowl ad a ways back that was it was a kind of an anti-ad. So that was an inspiring one. And I think a lot of what you see the beauty industry doing around realness, what Dove has done, it really signals trust in humanity, just keeping it real and being human. And Dove has really played into that in a lot of their brand messaging. And I think in our technology driven world, that's a really smart way to differentiate yourself. And I think in a way, all of us as consumers are still humans and are really looking for like realness and transparency.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Retail Remix. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. See you next time.